And we know some of the names on the list, and they're very prominent names. I know names of people that are still being withheld because I have access to the sealed material because I was one of the litigants.
What do you think there is more to come, or do you think these 20,000 emails are the brunt of it?
No, there's much more to come.
Hello and welcome back to the Americano Show. Today I am delighted to be joined by Alan Dershowitz, who is Professor Emeritus at Harvard Law School, the author of several books, and somebody who has been caught up in the Epstein saga, which, as I'm sure all viewers will know, burst once again into life yesterday with the news that 20,000 emails had been published. Now, Alan, let's get the awkward bit out of the way first. You're mentioning quite a lot of these emails, and I think the most striking thing to me is that despite the media saying for a long time that you and Epstein were sort of thick as thieves, it seems that Epstein didn't have a very high opinion of you.
He didn't, and I didn't have a very high opinion of him. We were suing each other. He thought the deal I made with the government was a terrible deal because it required him to go to jail for 18 months. He refused to pay my fee. I threatened to sue him, and ultimately we settled the case. But I had nothing to do with Epstein once he was convicted. Of course, I was then accused by Virginia Giuffre, the same person who accused Prince Andrew, formerly known as the Prince Andrew. And she ultimately admitted that she may have misidentified me, made a mistake, and withdrew all of her charges. And I got completely and totally vindicated. But nonetheless, this email yesterday said that Epstein thought I was close to being insane, along with Larry Summers. I'm happy to be in the good company of the president of Harvard, Larry Summers, and I certainly will allow other people to judge my sanity, but you don't have to believe anything Jeffrey Epstein said. And that's the remarkable thing about these emails. People take them at face value. You know, Epstein was manipulative. He used emails often to make points, favorable or unfavorable about people. And nobody should look at any Epstein email without questioning at least the credibility and the motivation behind it.
Well, that's the extraordinary thing, is that a lot of Democrats have seized on, in particular in relation to Donald Trump, this email from Epstein saying victim, it's blurred out, but the White House have suggested it's Virginia Giuffre, saying victim spent all this time with Donald Trump, and Donald Trump is the, what's he say, the dog that hasn't barked in this story so far. And it's very thrilling, of course, to a lot of people to think that Donald Trump might be heavily implicated in the whole Epstein scandal. But as you say, everybody's taking the word of Epstein as gospel when perhaps it is not.
Yeah, and in the case of Virginia Giuffre, whose name was initially repressed and only the White House was able to reveal it, she had previously said she never met, she had never been with Donald Trump at all. She had seen him, but she had never actually talked to him. And so who are you going to believe? You're going to believe Virginia Giuffre, you're going to believe Epstein, or you're going to believe neither of them. So the media has a job to do too. They have to look at every single accusation and assess the credibility of the accusers. One of the things that's being withheld, right, if somebody calls themselves a victim, automatically the information about them is being withheld. Now, some of the victims are legitimate victims. And so it's really important when you disclose the names of accusers that you also disclose any information that might raise questions about their credibility or show other things that have been said.
Well, it's particularly interesting with Virginia Giuffre because she's recently brought out this book, which has been received a lot of praise in some quarters, and of course she did die recently, which is very sad. But her testimony has been very contradictory, and that's been proven. And I think almost everybody knows that. What's so odd about this, and this speaks to the kind of meta-truths or untruths of the Epstein story, is that people just don't really want to believe it. They want to believe so much that Giuffre is this victim that they overlook the contradictions in her accounts.
And that's why it's so important for everything to come out, not just selective. For example, there are depositions that I am aware of because I was involved in the depositions that the courts are now sealing. And those depositions would disclose a great deal of information that would be relevant to the public to assess credibility of various people. And so, what's the worst possible thing is selective disclosure, and that's what we're seeing. Selective disclosure. Who's making the selections? The Democrats withheld the name of Virginia Giuffre, and the White House had to reveal it. And people withhold information, not neutrally, but they withhold it in order to present their narrative. And the counter narrative has to be there too. And the only way to do that is to have every bit of information revealed, every bit. Remember these, quote, alleged victims, some of whom are real victims, some of which are not. They're all now in their 40s. They're adults. There's no reason to protect them. If they are real victims, they shouldn't be ashamed of having been victimized. If they're fake victims, if they were persuaded by their lawyers to file an application for money, even though they had never met Jeffrey Epstein, and we know such cases exist, then they have no right to privacy. So everything inclines toward complete and total disclosure. We'll never get total disclosure until the judges, not the Trump administration, the judges unseal material they've now sealed.
I mean, I don't want to quibble with you too facetiously, but I mean, surely if you are a real victim, there is a good case for you. You might not want your name to be known, you might not want the public to know about it, and you presumably should have a right to keep your anonymity.
Not if you're accusing somebody publicly, or not if you're trying to get money. Once you put yourself out there as somebody who is trying to claim something that may or may not be true, I think you lose your right. Now, if you were a very young person, maybe that would be one thing, but the vast majority of alleged victims were well over age when these alleged events occurred. So there are arguments on both sides. But I think on balance, when we're talking about 25 years after these events occurred, the interests of public disclosure outweighs the interests of privacy. It certainly outweighs the interests of selective privacy, because some people are putting their names out there and others are not. So these are hard questions, and I think they ought to be debated in the media.
There's obviously a lot of glee on the part of Democrats about Trump's name coming up again. But I mean, they have a point to feel some glee, because I think it's clear to me anyway that the Trump administration has mishandled this quite spectacularly. I mean, of course, as everyone knows, they promised they were going to release the Epstein files, and then there was that strangely announced joint statement from the FBI and the Attorney General Pam Bondi, the Department of Justice, I think I should say, saying, no, we're not going to release them, and the whole thing can really go away. To which the obvious response was, if there's nothing to see there, release the files.
I agree with you. And there's also a lot of miscommunication about whether there's a client list. There is a client list, but it was never written by Jeffrey Epstein. It was the FBI put together a list of people who were accused, and some of the names have been redacted. I know the names because I was involved in, obviously, the law cases, and there are still some names that have been redacted. So there is a list, but it's not a Jeffrey Epstein list. It's a list the FBI put together based on accusations made by people who they interviewed. That's the closest thing we have to any kind of a list. And we know some of the names on the list, and they're very prominent names. I know names of people that are still being withheld because I have access to the sealed material because I was one of the litigants. And our lawsuit resulted, obviously, in Virginia Giuffre withdrawing her claims against me and saying she may have misidentified me. So, you know, I'm one of the very, very few people who have succeeded in proving my innocence by litigation. The reason I was able to do it and others were not able to do it is I have nothing to hide. I've never done anything wrong in my life sexually. So I wasn't afraid of a deposition. I welcomed a deposition. I have no dirty laundry. So I was perfectly prepared to have a deposition, and I prevailed in my case as a result of that. So there are very, very different kinds of people who are involved in these cases, and we shouldn't make broad judgments. I was on a Piers Morgan yesterday, and some radical leftist was talking about, well, there are a class of people, a class of prominent people, all of whom are involved. I mean, that's Zoran Mamdani talk, classes of people. That's Marxism. There are no classes of people. There are just individuals, some of whom are guilty and some of whom are innocent. And full and total disclosure of all the information is the best way of getting at the truth.
Well, isn't there a little bit, though, a case of, the conspiracy shoe on the other foot? because for a long time, people in Trump world were very, very excited about the Epstein files because they thought it would reveal the Clintons and that this very sinister network of globally elite paedophiles was operating unchecked by the rule of law. And that idea is very powerful, possibly because it does speak to a certain truth that very rich people seem to get away with things that other people don't.
No doubt about that. Rich people are able to hire lawyers like me who have successful records in defending them. That's part of our legal system. I do half of my cases pro bono in order to try to overcome that. So today, for example, I helped save a man's life in Iraq, pro bono, completely free of charge. So poor people get good defense as well. But obviously, rich people get better medical care, better housing, better education, and better legal defense. Who's surprised about that?
Well, nobody. But I suppose my point is that Trump world was very curious and excited about the Epstein files, and then it obviously is thrown into slight conniptions now because the Democrats think it's a winning argument for them because Trump is now connected to or is named in these files, and there may be more to come. Actually, on that, that's probably a more interesting question. What do you think there is more to come, or do you think these 20,000 emails are the brunt of it?
No, there's much more to come, much more to come. The emails are strange. First of all, some of these emails involve lawyer-client privileged conversations. One of the emails I read just yesterday involved the late Roy Black, who is one of the great lawyers in America, having legal exchanges with Jeffrey Epstein. That kind of material absolutely should not be disclosed unless there's the permission of the lawyer, the client, or the client's estate. But there's a great deal more. I think there are more emails, number one. The emails start at a certain point. I know I had emails with Jeffrey Epstein back in 2005, 2006, when I was representing him. And I know there'd probably be plenty of other emails. Most important are what's being sealed by the judges. There are 3 federal judges in New York that have sealed massive amounts of material, depositions of very, very prominent people. And those depositions should be revealed. One of them is a deposition by me. One of them is a deposition by other people. And I'm perfectly happy. I said from day one, I claim no interest in privacy. I want everything out there because I'm innocent. People who are guilty obviously don't want to see the information revealed, but they have no right to withhold it.
And if there is a full release of all the information, as much transparency as can be had, what do you expect the story will become?
Less interesting, I think, because I don't think Donald Trump was involved in anything illegal or improper. The same is true of Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton. I don't think we're going to see any big names. After the lawyers for Virginia Giuffre investigated the case, Brad Edwards and David Boies both said that Trump was not involved. And Brad Edwards said nobody whose name is prominent or is prominent in politics is involved. So we may be very disappointed when all the information comes out. But the public has the right to all that information. And so do falsely accused people have the right to all the information coming out, including information that raises questions about the credibility of accusers. The one thing that's wrong is to name those accused without naming the accusers, because that denies absolute due process. So it's crucially important that the information about the accusers come out as well.
Well, actually, the Jewish element was what I wanted to ask you about, because one of the most popular theories within the conspiracy theories about what happened with Jeffrey Epstein is that he was working with the Mossad and that somehow he was perhaps obtaining compromat on very rich and famous people and was trading that for influence and so on. And
I wish that had been true, because if it had been true, he would have told me that, and I would have used it to get him an even better deal. Remember, the best deal I can. Not only that, but I represented the Mossad several years ago in helping to get some Mossad agents out of Cyprus who had been arrested, and I helped to get them out. I have a very close relationship. I'm not a Mossad member or a spy, but I know the former head of Mossad. I know the current head of Mossad. And I asked them both directly, is there any plausibility to the claim that Epstein was involved in the Mossad? And they laughed. And somebody produced a picture. This was interesting. A picture of Jeffrey Epstein wearing an IDF, Israel Defense Forces shirt. And I saw the picture and I recognized it. I had bought him that shirt for $7.95 in the Shuk, in the place in Jerusalem. He came to Jerusalem one day to visit people, and I took him on a walk, and I bought him the shirt. And that proves for $7.95 that he works for the Israeli Defense Forces. People are prepared to make up all kinds of stories. The reason for the Epstein Mossad issue is because Epstein obviously was closely related and friend with Ghislaine Maxwell, and Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, may well have had a connection to the Mossad. That's a possibility. But to extrapolate that to Jeffrey Epstein is just, conspiracy theory.
Well, moving from Jewish people to British people, one point you hear made quite a lot at the moment in Britain is that the people who have really been punished in the Epstein saga so far are both British. The Andrew, formerly known as Prince, as he's now called, and of course Ghislaine Maxwell, the daughter of Robert Maxwell. Do you think that's because they are not British? Do you think there's some connection there, that's why they have suffered legally?
No, I don't think so. My own view is that Ghislaine Maxwell, the sentence is way excessive to what she's actually serving Jeffrey Epstein's sentence. If Jeffrey Epstein were alive, he'd have gotten 20 years. Probably she wouldn't have been prosecuted. Probably she would have appeared as a witness in the case. And as far as as far as the prince is concerned, the former prince, his lawyers made a dreadful mistake by agreeing to pay money to the accuser. I think that he could have won the case. I've said this publicly, had he fought it. But I think his mother wanted very much for there not to be a public trial. And so we'll see. There's a lot of gray areas here rather than pure black and white areas. And so people have to look at it in the whole entire context, and they can't because everything hasn't been produced. So I'm still, from day one, the first day that I was accused, the first thing I said is produce everything. I waive all my rights to privacy. I waive my lawyer confidentiality, as any innocent person should do in a context like this. And I'm still waiting for all the information to come out, but it hasn't.
Another theory that you hear is that Trump is at some point going to pardon Ghislaine Maxwell. What do you make of that?
I hope he does. I think that she has gotten too long a sentence, either pardon or commutation. But I don't know whether he will or not. I can't get into the mind of him. I know he knows her, and she's a very nice person, and very likable. And if he considered the whole case, I think he'd see that the sentence was way in excess of what she would have gotten had Epstein remained alive. But different people have a different view of that, and they're entitled to their view. And I have no idea whether the president will or won't engage in executive clemency.
Alan Dershowitz, thank you very much for coming on to the Americano Show. We hope to get you on again at some point.
Well, thanks for having me.